If you're trying to collect rare or expensive whiskies, this is the video for you. I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd, and this week I'm going to be telling you 5 tips for how to collect those rare, those expensive, those valuable bottles of whiskey. If you're looking to maybe just get started in whiskey, in collecting whiskey, I've got a video last week that came out where I talked about how to set up a beginner's whiskey collection, how to find those whiskeys you enjoy and really build a collection you can really enjoy. But if you're looking to maybe get a valuable whiskey collection, maybe it's for a gift, maybe you're gonna give it to your kids when they're old enough to drink, or maybe you're looking to collect kind of valuable whiskeys to sell later on or to pass down to your kids, this is the video for you. And the first tip for collecting valuable whiskey is, well, if you're getting into it now, maybe start with the old reliables. So the old reliables are the whiskeys I talk about, like Blanton's, like Pappy Van Winkle, like Middleton Very Rare, like the Redbreast Dream Casks. They are hard to find, but you know that they're good quality whiskey. They are solid whiskeys. They are gonna always hold their value. They're not gonna be maybe unknown distilleries, unknown kind of bottlings that maybe could be good, maybe could be bad. These are reliable for a reason. They're often hard to find because they're so reliable, because they're so good. But if you're looking to get a collection, let's say you've got a kid and they were just born and you're looking to get an annual release of a whiskey for now until they're old enough to drink, whether that's 18 or 21, maybe a good like annual release like the Middleton Very Rare is a good bottle to collect, because A, you know it's going to be a good whiskey when they're old enough to drink. You know every one of those 18 or 21 bottles is going to be good, but also you know there's going to be another 18 or 21 bottles. You know that distillery is not going to go out of business. They're not going to stop making Middleton Very Rare, so you know you can build that valuable collection. If you're looking to sell whiskies, which you should always be careful about selling, but you know those whiskies are pretty much gonna hold their value or go up in value because they're, like I said, they're reliables. They're solid whiskies that are always gonna have demand. So if you're just getting out, maybe start off with those old reliables. Tip number 2, if you're not going for those old reliable bottles, maybe do a little bit of research, do a little bit of snooping on Instagram or Reddit, and you can find new whiskeys or new releases that have a bit of a buzz about them, that you know are gonna become maybe valuable in the near future. Maybe it's a new distillery or a new company that's putting out some really good stuff that maybe you can get advance notice of. You can find those bottles when they're easy to find, when they're maybe cheaper than they should be, and you can get access to those bottles. Companies often put out on their Instagram when their special editions are coming out, when their annual releases are coming out. So if you're following them on Instagram, if you're looking at the news on Reddit, you can actually find out a lot of information about good quality whiskey ahead of just kind of the general population, and you can be ready if the whiskey goes on sale at noon. You can be ready on the website at 11:59, hit refresh and get yourself that whiskey. Also, it does pay when you're doing your research to maybe reach out to some of those local bottle shops. If you've got a good whiskey shop near you who gets in a lot of good quality whiskeys, maybe they're connected to the distributors, maybe they're connected to the distilleries, reach out to them, make friends with them. Don't just like go up and say, what's the rarest whiskey you have? Get to know them, buy the whiskey from them, get to know the person there, not just, oh, he's the guy who works in the store, he's John, he's Paul, they're Mary, they're Sue, they're Jane, whoever they are, get to know them. And then you might say, oh hey, I'm in work tomorrow, I won't be able to get over to the shop until 4 p.m. If you get any of these bottles, could you put me one aside? Could you put it behind the shelf? They might do that for you. Or maybe they'll let you know, oh, we're out of that today, but our delivery is coming in next week. You can come back next week and you might find out when that whiskey is for sale. Even if it's not available right now, they might let you know. So when you're doing your research, don't just keep it online, also reach out to the people in those stores. Tip number 3, this is a long game. If you're building up a collection to give to your kid when they're old enough to drink, that might take 18 or 21 years. If you're collecting whiskeys that are maybe going to be valuable in the future that you can sell, that might take a long time before they become very rare or very valuable. You might have to be in this for a while. Some whiskeys come out as maybe limited runs or kind of sets or bottlings where you have to collect a couple of different whiskies for them to become valuable. Think of the Maker's Mark FAE series. Any one of those bottles is pretty good, it's pretty handy, it's pretty tasty, it's pretty valuable, but if you were to get the entire series, that'd be a much better collection, because imagine you give someone an FAE 01 bottle. Great, that's very tasty, that's a great gift. If you give them FAE 01, 02, you get the kind of multiples of that, that's a much more fun present, it's a much more complete gift, or if you're planning on selling it, that's much more valuable, because then somebody else can enjoy the work you've done. You put in the effort to get them all those different bottles, and they can then try them all side by side, because sometimes those kind of annual runs, the limited releases, those series, they can be often better when they're enjoyed together. So you might have to put in a bit of time for your collection to be actually worth a lot of money, or to be valuable, or to be kind of sellable. Speaking of selling, tip number 4, have a plan. Have a plan of what you're going to do with your valuable whiskey collection. Whether it's, like I've been saying, giving it to your child when they're old enough to drink, that's a great plan. Collect those 18 or those 21 bottles, give it to them, that's great. If you're saying, I'm going to sell these whiskeys, I'm going to sell from 2022 to 2032, I'm going to collect that 10 years. Great. If you're collecting, like I said, those Maker's Mark series or something like that, where you have a set collection, great, do that. Don't just collect every single whiskey in the world, throw it in a bunker somewhere and keep it and never drink it. The saddest news story I ever read was about the most complete Scotch whiskey collection that had ever been made. It was worth millions of pounds, and it was being sold at auction by the guy's son. So the guy never opened it, the guy never drank it, he never tasted these whiskeys, never cracked open the bottles with his son. He just passed them down to his son and he was selling them on, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do with your money, you can do it. You can buy your whiskeys, you can pass them on, you can sell them, but have a plan. Don't just collect whiskey for the point of collecting them. Have a plan with what you want to do, and that also helps you with your budgeting to make sure you're not spending money on stuff you're not going to enjoy. Bonus tip, because I just mentioned bunkering, if you're building a valuable whiskey collection, get some good storage. You don't want to just leave these bottles out on the shelf where you're going to be playing with them and damaging the labels, because they're not going to look good after a few years, or if you're planning on selling them, they're not going to be worth as much. Likewise, don't put them out in a shed, out in the yard where there's maybe some moisture in the air, there's a bit of damp, and those bottles can get bad, the seals can get damaged inside the corks. You don't want that. Get some good quality storage, some good sturdy shelves where you can put your whiskies away, you can keep them safe, you can keep them secure, you can keep them out of sunlight, and you can keep them from getting damaged. Because that way, when you give them either as a gift or over to an auction house to sell them, they're going to be good, they're going to be valuable, they're going to be worth the effort you put in to getting them, to keeping them for all those years. And lastly, tip number 5, and you might have gathered from my kind of attitude during this video, get ready or be prepared to maybe lose money. Collecting whiskey to sell isn't maybe the best investment you could make, the best thing you could do with your money. Like, yeah, sure, during the pandemic, whiskey and bourbon prices shot up through the roof, but they might not always stay that high. We could go through economic downturns where you might have to sell your whiskey and there's just not the demand. You might buy a brand new bottle of whiskey from a new distillery, and it turns out that distillery isn't making good whiskey, so it doesn't ever become valuable. Or you might buy whiskey from a distillery, and then a few years later it comes out that that distillery was underpaying their workers, mistreating their workers, and everyone just hates that distillery. They go out of business, so you can't finish the collection, and nobody wants to buy whiskey that was made by that distillery. So you gotta be ready at the end of the day. If you buy something, if you are investing, you gotta be ready that you might lose money, that your money might just go down the drain or go into a glass that you then have to drink. So always only ever pay money into a whiskey collection that you're willing to lose. So those are my tips for collecting rare or valuable or expensive whiskeys. If you've got other tips, let me know down in the comments below, because I'm sure anyone else watching this video would love to hear from you, to love to hear your experience and your advice for collecting those whiskeys. Like I said, I'm Matt, I'm the Whiskey Nerd. If you want to see more videos like this, I put out videos like this talking about whiskey every now and then on a Monday. I put out whiskey reviews every Wednesday and whiskey cocktails every Friday. So if you want to see those, make sure you hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Sláinte.